Werewolves are really interesting creatures if you think about it. Like, how often do you hear about somebody who can turn into a werewolf, they go about at night and really just terrorizing people? You probably don't hear that too often now, do you? But I bet that every single one of you knows at least what a werewolf is. I mean, come on, like, werewolves are everywhere. They're just so popular. We've all heard the stories, right? Like, there's people, they become werewolves, they become cursed, under the full moon they transform and they terrorize the local villages. But this is a history show, and as historians we have to ask the critical question: where do werewolves come from? If you've seen the video that I did on the history of vampires, then you know what to expect from this video. It's not going to be that different. We're going to talk about similar things, but it'll still be interesting, so get ready. My name is Cosden and this is Vlogs of Knowledge. You guys seem to really love these mythological episodes, so I'll keep making them. And so far we've talked about vampires, we've talked about mythology, and even mentioned witches, which is actually pretty good because today's topic involves all three. Vampires, witches, and werewolves actually have a lot in common. Like, they can all be traced back to ancient history, they all fit within the same supernatural world, and they're all based on fear and lack of knowledge. Right? Like, vampires were popularized because the general population thought that if somebody died a violent death, they could come back from the dead, kill people, and drink their blood. And witches were believed to have made a pact with the devil that would grant them supernatural powers to be able to inflict harm on others as they saw fit. And then we have werewolves, the fierce creatures of the night. As usual, we're going to spend some time looking at the history of werewolves, what they are, where they came from, how they got there, but then we're also going to go back and just look more deeply as to what happened, because we all know that werewolves, they don't really exist, but people at some point in time they believed that werewolves existed, and that's very interesting to look at why and understand how that could happen. Now, werewolves, just like vampires, don't actually have some sort of international standard as to what a werewolf should be. Like, it's all different based on different cultures. Since for most of our human history we really didn't have instant communication like we have it today, things took a while to spread, and when they did, they often got distorted. It's like playing a huge game of telephone throughout history. Instead of trying to trace back the origins of werewolves, which proves to be a very difficult thing to do because they all came sort of at different times in different places all independently, a better approach would be to look at what we have chronologically, like what came first, what information about werewolves came first, and then take it from there. The first real account of something that can be called a werewolf comes from the 1st century AD in the Roman Empire. Now, as you know, the Roman Empire, along with the ancient Greeks, they have some very interesting stories that ended up actually influencing the entire world. And this is one of those stories. So the story goes as follows. There was a king by the name of Lycaon who did not believe that Zeus was a real god. So he thought, you know what, I want to figure out once and for all if Zeus is a real god or not. He thought the best way to do this was to serve Zeus with human meat instead of animal meat at a banquet, because if Zeus was a real god, he would be able to catch onto the ruse and realize that he was eating human meat instead of animal meat. It's strange, but that's what he thought. The human meat, which by the way the king took from his own son, yes, his own son, was then served to Zeus at a banquet that was being hosted one evening. Zeus, being a god, he realized the ruse and he felt insulted by what had been done to him. As a punishment, since the king apparently seems to love human meat so much, he made him become a werewolf. The reason behind this was that, well, if the king loves human meat so much, then why not just make him a werewolf? That would really allow him to eat as much human meat as he wants and not get socially outcast by society, right? Because if you're human and you eat human meat, that's not gonna go well with society. People are gonna look bad on you. Like, it's not really that legal, it's not seen as something that's human to do. But if you're a werewolf, well, it kind of works. Some people argue that, well, is this really a curse or not? Because maybe the king actually really loved human meat and all he wanted to do was eat human meat, and him being a werewolf allowed him to do just that. Nonetheless, this story, along with similar stories, eventually gave rise to this idea of lycanthropy, that people can become a werewolf, and the word lycanthropy comes straight from the king in our story, King Lycaon. From then on, besides a few mentions here and there, we don't really see that much of a big mainstream belief in werewolves and really big mainstream fear, at least not until the Middle Ages. Honestly, it seems like every bad thing in this world in history has come from, or at least has passed through, the Middle Ages. Like, the Middle Ages, come on, like, I mention it in like almost every video. They're like one of my favorite historical periods ever. I just wish I could have lived just 1 year in the Middle Ages just to see what was it like. What was it like to live there with all this belief in superstition, with all the, like, living in a local village, you know, just to, I don't know, man, it must have been an experience. Now, in the Middle Ages, werewolves became a lot more real than they were previously, because previously they were mythology, they were folklore, they were things distant from human life. It wasn't until the popularization of Christianity that werewolves became much more predominant in everyday conversation. conversation. Like suddenly the village started to care about werewolves. Christianity brought these creatures that were kind of already in the back of people's heads, right, from mythology, from legends, and they associated them with Satan, the devil. They became a curse or even sometimes just a deal that you made with the devil to be able to get these superpowers and turn into a werewolf. Like werewolves, just like witches, were thought to have come from the same place. And given the fact that Europe at the time was in the middle of a 300-year witch hunt, like werewolves, they fit perfectly in the picture, right? You're gonna kill witches, well, might as well just kill werewolves. And actually one of the powers that witches were thought to have was to be able to transform into a werewolf, or at least just summon one and unleash it on the whole village. Like that's what they believed. Naturally, if you lived in the Middle Ages at that time in Europe, you're probably gonna believe in werewolves, you're gonna believe in witches and vampires, because really, like I said in previous videos, what better do you know? You don't know how to read, you're not educated, like you have nothing to go on, like you're gonna believe anything that you hear. And what do you do when you're really afraid for your life, you're living in the Middle Ages and you hear constant rumors of supernatural things? Well, you're gonna start putting people to trial and you're gonna start forcing confessions, whether you realize it or not. Now, to say that the judicial system in the Middle Ages was conducted fairly and within reason is a big understatement. Like not only was there pretty much no requirement for any sort of evidence, but also you had some very violent torture methods. And I don't know about you, but if I was faced with those torture methods, I would probably just say anything just to avoid being tortured. And just like we had witches confessing of being witches, we had werewolves confessing of being werewolves. And here's the story. There was a man, he was accused of being a werewolf. He confessed to everything, to the crimes of murder, cannibalism, and even rape. He confessed that he spent about 20 years killing people, killing animals, eating people, eating animals, and even raping his own sister and his own daughter. He said that he was able to do all of those things because he made a pact with the devil that allowed him to turn into a werewolf and really just do whatever he wanted. He could kill, he could eat, he could rape, he could do whatever he wanted, and he confessed that in court. Now, when you have confessions like that, well, you're gonna believe that there's a werewolf, right? Like, what else can you do? Like, he just confessed in court. Like, there's no reason for you not to believe him. Like, you have no choice. You are going to believe him. And just like we had thousands of witches being killed, we also had thousands of werewolves being killed. Like, it was a widespread panic, and people just lost it. Like, when people are scared, they do very crazy things. Like, they don't think, they just start killing people in trial because they're all scared. They all want to protect their families and their loved ones. It's human nature. Like, I completely understand. And just to show you how messed up the Middle Ages were, that daughter and that sister actually got killed because they had sex with the werewolf. Like, they had sex with the werewolf and they got killed for it. That's the Middle Ages. On second thought, I don't think I really want to live in the Middle Ages, because if things like that happen, well, nobody's safe, right? I could die, I might not make it out alive. I think it's best to stay here and just really observe the Middle Ages from a distance. And from there, you had a huge game of telephone that was being played. Rumors started spreading around, people started talking about werewolves, and things got distorted. Some werewolves transform at will, others are bound by the full moon, some get infected through blood, others by sleeping under the full moon on a Friday, which is oddly specific. And that's what I meant when I said that there's no international standard for what a werewolf should be. It was all different based on different cultures and based on this huge game of telephone. But now that we got the history out of the way, let's actually go back and just look at what happened. Like, try to understand why people believed in werewolves, because really, we all know that werewolves do not exist, yet people, they believed it. Because sure, it's one thing to hear about werewolves and then actually believe it. Like, sure, you might believe it, but the truth is that a lot of these things were based on what people saw. Like, people saw things that made them think that it was a werewolf. Like, there was a reason why they were putting people to trial. Like, even in the Middle Ages, you're not going to send somebody to trial without some sort of reason. Like, sure, you might not need the best evidence, but at least you have to have a reason. You're not going to put anybody on trial just because you feel like it. Unless you have a personal vendetta against that person, you're not going to do it. You have to have a reason. You had to have seen something for you to say, like, you know what, I'm going to put these people in trial because I think he's a werewolf. Coincidentally, and I feel like I always say this because it's always a coincidence, in Europe at the time, there were a lot of murders going around. And more specifically, there were a lot of serial killers. And while not all of them are cannibals or express interest in cannibalism, some of them were. It was actually a pretty common trait among serial killers in the Middle Ages to be cannibals. Like, I think you know where this is going. Now, finding a dead body that looked like it was attacked by an animal is not enough to make you think of a werewolf. If you find out that this body was actually murdered by somebody and then eaten by what looks like to be an animal, well, that might. Because it was commonly believed that when people turned into werewolf, they would be able to keep some sort of consciousness. Like, they would still be able to think a little bit like a human. So if they wanted to kill somebody, well, they could. So if somebody had a problem with you in the village, well, first of all, the entire village would know about it because this was the Middle Ages, everybody knew everybody, and that person could very well choose to just kill you at night. If you were unlucky, that person might express some interest in cannibalism and start to eat your body after he killed you, and that would lead the entire village to believe that, hey, you were just killed by a werewolf, when in fact it was just somebody who wanted to kill you and he wanted to eat your body as well. That's why people thought it was werewolves. Sometimes it didn't even need to be a human, like just a normal wolf attack would suffice. Like, usually wolves don't attack people, but if it's winter, if there's no food, they might, especially if you're alone at night in a forest. and you find a pack of wolves, like forget it, you're gonna be dead. Like a lot of these killings happen in the forest, which is why people believe that werewolves come from the forest. Just like we had it with vampires and witches, people really looked at what they saw and they came to their own conclusions, right? They saw animal attacks and they assumed it was a werewolf because the rumors were there, like people were scared, and when people are scared, they don't think straight. And it's that panic that puts people to trials, and then people in the trial, well, they confess because nobody wants to be tortured in the Middle Ages, and those confessions, they just fuel the fear, like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. There was really no way out, like at least for the time, right? Until we started to learn more about the world, understand how it works, why things happen, really provide some better explanations to these events, and then we suddenly stopped to believe in werewolves. So that was a brief history on werewolves. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave it a big like, make sure to subscribe, and also click the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. And of course, it also helps me out because it shows me that you enjoy my content. And now it's time for questions. Which one do you prefer, vampires, witches, or werewolves? And please do let me know why. And also, what do you think about the fact that we keep seeing the same fear over and over again of the supernatural, right? It's just a different creature, but at the end, it's really the same thing. Please do leave me a comment. I would love to know. I would love to read them all. And bonus points for you. If you do leave a comment, you might get featured next week's video as a fan of the week. As you know, and as I say at the end of every video, I haven't talked about everything, and the things that I did talk about, well, I haven't gone into too much detail. That's okay. I'm actually doing this on purpose because I want you guys to go out and research on your own and maybe learn a thing or two. My name has been Cosden. It's been an absolute pleasure. You can follow me on social media. The links will be in the description. And I will see you all next week.